Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be going over the strongest FGC character in Smash Ultimate because you have Ken, Kazuya, Terry, and Ryu, and they're all fairly strong characters with their own strengths and weaknesses, and in today's video we're going to be comparing them against each other and figuring out which one is the best. So before we talk about a specific character, let's talk about the general trend of FGC characters and what they're all thriving in. That main one is going to be that auto turnaround. They're the only characters in the game that have it, and it is a very good feature, especially with the interaction of Slingshot, because the only kind of downside to auto turnaround is, yeah, it's making your movement a little bit more linear and it's harder to get access to your back air, but with Slingshot, you can do it so quickly. You can zoom across the stage, have that back air access, have a basically full moveset while still having that auto turnaround, and auto turnaround, it basically just means that you can't get mixed up. I think a great matchup to explain it is going to be Fox versus either of the Shoto characters. Fox cannot mix them up on shield because they just drop shield and then they jab, and their jab combos into an up B. And Kazuya can basically do this with electric, Terry can do this with his jab. All the characters have auto turnaround and really quick punishes, as well as killing up Bs out of shield, which is an incredibly important thing in this game. Having a kill option on a shield is always nice, but having a kill option that is an up B is extremely nice because it does hit on both sides, at least for Kazuya and Terry, and then you can turn around with Ken and Ryu as well. Another thing that they all share, the damage output. FGC characters' damage output is ridiculous. They can all also cancel their moves, so that's going to be a huge benefit. They get a lot of jabs, a lot of down tilts, a lot of the quicker light moves because they can confirm it into the heavier moves. And then the final thing that I want to mention, I think all characters do pretty well, is going to be shield damage. These guys will destroy your shield. They can do a full combo on your shield that breaks it from full. It is actually ridiculous how much pressure they apply. So overall, FGC characters, they have that auto turnaround. Their pressure is incredibly strong, and their out of shield game is really good. And the first character I want to talk about is going to be Ken. Now, the biggest thing that Ken has going for him, in my opinion, is going to be his speed. He is the fastest of the FGC characters. It's not by a ton, but in these small micro situations, it can matter. You have Ken in first, Terry in second, Ryu in third, and Kazuya in fourth, just in case you're curious. And Ken, overall, quick character, has some quick buttons as well. One of my favorite things about Ken that the other two don't really have, the other three don't really have, is going to be the fact that his up B out of shield is such a good call. It's just a good call in general. Now, Kazuya has this, Ryu has this, Terry has this, but with Kazuya and Ryu, their sweet spot, it's not going to be at the top. Whereas Ken, his sweet spot is at the very top of his Shoryu, so he can call to jump and kill someone at 80. Terry can kind of do this, but his isn't as strong. Also, it does take a little bit longer to get there. So for Ken, I think that's a great anti-air that only really he has access to, which is a pretty big deal. And then he has all the normal Shoto stuff. I'd say his biggest downside is going to be the fact that his projectile is kind of weak, especially in contrast to Ryu's Fireball, because Ryu's Fireball is incredibly good. His side B also isn't as strong, but if Ryu didn't exist, then I probably wouldn't be harping on these things too hard because they're not terrible moves. The side B, you can still get usage out of it. It's still nice to have a projectile in general. So Ken, overall, really good character. He is the fastest FGC. He has that call out of shield that I really like because it makes Ken, honestly, one of the scariest FGC characters to play against. I know all four of them are scary, but the fact that you can just die when you're above Ken starting at like 70%, it gets really stressful. Also, one thing that I forgot to mention that I think Ken does pretty well over Ryu is going to be his grab game. Now, their grab game is fairly weak. Out of the Shoto characters, they do have the worst grabs, but the difference is Ken's back throw is really good because he rolls back when he throws you, which means he's getting a lot more stage control. You're getting sent a lot more further off stage, and in general, you're just kind of getting more off of a back throw than Ryu would. So that's not a big thing that I think Ken does fairly well at, but that's all I wanted to mention. Next up, we're going to have Kazuya. Now, Kazuya, he's got a lot going for him. He is the heaviest of the FGC characters, but he's also the slowest of the FGC characters. He has the best advantage state of the FGC characters, but he also probably has the worst disadvantage state of the FGC characters. So with Kazuya, you're kind of taking a lot and you're giving a lot, but his win condition is just so insanely strong that we kind of have to give him a lot of praise here. The thing about Kazuya I think is really good that the other FGC characters don't benefit as much from is going to be his grab game. Now, I said Terry has a decent grab game, and that is still true, but nobody's got a grab game like Kazuya. The fact that he has multiple kill throws, has an input kill throw that kills most characters at like 50% off the backstage, it's actually insane, but he can also just, down throw electric you, and you die at 0. Kazuya is going to be hitting you the hardest of the FGC characters. And when your character is hitting harder than Ryu and Terry, that is a pretty big deal. He does have, of course, the weakest disadvantage state. I did mention that earlier, and the disadvantage state is really, really bad. That's obviously going to be the biggest problem of Kazuya, and that's kind of how you're seeing him get abused in the current meta. People just bully him in the disadvantage, but if he gets in that advantage neutral state as well, he has the crouch dash, which kind of makes up for his slow mobility. Electric Wind Godfist beats literally every move. He has that killing up yet a shield, so Kazuya has a bunch of stuff going for him, and though he does have a couple apparent weaknesses, I would say that he outweighs them. And the next character that I want to talk about is going to be Terry. Now, something that Terry has going from the other FGC characters don't have as much is his disadvantage state is actually bearable. Now, it's still not amazing, but he has side B, he has back B, he has down B, he has stall with his neutral special, his up special, grabs the ledge from like really, really low down. So Terry, his recovery game and disadvantage state in general is much better than the other FGC characters, and it complements him really well because he also has go meter. So he's going to be living in general a little bit longer. Sometimes he's going to get robbed of stocks, of course. It is still going to happen because his recovery isn't perfect, but he's going to be getting back to stage a lot more, and he's going to be able to utilize his go meter a lot more. I think out of all the DLC mechanics, Terry has the strongest DLC mechanic outside of Kazuya Electric, of course. I just think it's better than Rage Drive, personally, because go meter is ridiculously good. The fact that you have shield break setups with it, you can kill people at like 60% off your frame 6 down tilt, your frame 3 jab. Like, Terry is so ridiculous. His damage output is really good, but all the FGC characters do have that. But the main thing for me that I really see in Terry a lot is his aerial game. Terry's aerial game is really good. His nair is amazing. He can nair down air you. He can nair into side B you. He has so many stuff off it. He has up B combos. His forward air is really good. There are so many aerials for Terry that have a lot of use for them. And the other FGC characters have some good aerials. You know, Kazuya's up air. That's a really, really strong move. Ken and Ryu, I think their back airs are insanely strong. Their forward airs are also pretty good. And they have combo games off it. But Terry, by far, gets the most use out of his aerial game. And when you can be a little bit less linear, always stuck on the ground as an FGC character, you're actually jumping around, you're flying around with Terry. Even though he isn't as fast as Ken, he is still a fairly fast character, and I think overall he just has the most solid game plan in the air, which I think is a huge thing in Smash Ultimate. And the final character is going to be Ryu. And it's a lot of the same stuff I said about Ken, but with Ryu, he's not as fast. He has a way better fireball, like way better. Ryu's fireball is actually insanely good. Like, there's some matchups that Ken just loses super hard that Ryu does actually pretty okay. And because he has that fireball now, there's also the contrast. So there's some matchups where Ryu can't get in because he's too slow, and Ken is able to get in because he has that added speed, but that's just an example. Of course, you also have Ryu who having a better side B than Ken, at least in my opinion. Just having another kill move on the table is really, really nice. And with Ken and Ryu, you don't really super need their side B for any combo extensions. At least for Ken, he has a lot of ways to get some high damage output. I would much rather have a kill confirm that Ryu does have, so that's going to be another benefit from him. And then everything else, again, it's pretty much the same as Ken. There are a couple smaller differences. I think Ryu's shield breaking is a little bit scarier in my opinion, but when both the characters are shield breaking you off of one small combo, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But in general, Ryu's going to be hitting you a little harder. He is a little slower, but he makes up for that with the fireball and the side B. So let's actually rank these characters, starting off with the worst FGC character in the game, in my opinion, and that is going to be Ken. Now, Ken, everyone just pretty much does what he does, but better. They all hit extremely hard. They all have a little bit of a weak disadvantage. While he is the fastest, it's not by such a crazy amount where Ken's running over you and his pressure's so good that you can't do anything about it. The one big thing that he has going from is going to be the fact that his up B is so strong as an anti-air, but if you miss that up B, it is extremely committal, and you can get punished big time. So when I am looking at Ken, I'm looking at someone that's like, yes, in certain matchups, you're going to want that speed. You're going to be a little bit more risky with your up Bs, but in general, I just say he's kind of a worse Ryu. I would still place him in like the A tier top 30-40 maybe area, but he's still overall very good character, super strong. I just don't think as strong as the other FGCs. And let's talk about the next one. Number 3 is going to be Ryu. Now, this is kind of just Ken, except he has a better fireball, so that means his neutral in general is going to be better. He has better kill confirms off the side B. He does not have that call out that Ken does with his up B, which is a big deal, I do think, but I still value the consistency over Ryu. I just think the neutral game plan is much easier for him, and he has an easier time killing. He hits harder in general, it feels like. He is a little bit slower, though, so that is going to be a thing you have to look out for. But Ken and Ryu, they're fairly close on the tails. Again, kind of the same area for Ryu. I'd put him top 30-ish. So both those characters, they are still very good, but I would say that Kazuya and Terry are ahead of both of them. So what we've all been waiting for, which is the best FGC character in Smash Ultimate? Is it Terry or is it Kazuya? And in my opinion, it is Kazuya for now, because I think in a couple months, maybe even just 1 month, Terry is going to surpass Kazuya, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, I just think people are going to realize that Terry is good again. Terry is so good. The mobility is really strong for him. His disadvantage state is much better than the FGC characters, so he's just living a lot longer than them. All the FGC characters are fairly heavy, but the fact that you can live that long with Terry, I'd say he has the best kind of DLC factor as well, because Ken and Ryu, they don't really have that. Kazuya does have Rage Drive, but I would way rather go over Rage Drive, even though Rage Drive is ridiculous. ridiculous. Terry's aerial game I really value as well. It doesn't feel like he's as grounded and linear as the other FGC characters. Just feels like he's a lot more mix-up in general because of that mobility, because of the willingness to jump in the air, and then he also has that back shoot, which is really strong. But Kazuya is obviously ridiculous. He has a reflector that kills you at 0 that I didn't even mention because there's just too many things to mention. Crouch dash is really good. Electric is obviously a huge problem, but I think as the game progresses, Kazuya's kind of already peaked for me. I think this character is kind of done developing, and there are going to be something that's still developed. Maybe his lead trapping gets a little bit stronger. Maybe there's a new combo that people discover that you can kill people off a grab way easier. There are going to be new ways that Kazuya gets kind of better in the meta, but I think as people figure him out, they bully him more in disadvantage state because that's the one area where he really, really struggles. His disadvantage state is god-awful. People are going to get better at playing outside of his burst range, and I think overall, he's just going to kind of slowly decline as a character. Still going to be very strong, but I still think Kazuya is in that top 15 area. I think Terry right now is in the top 20 area. I think Terry is either going to stay where he is or continue to go up, and I think Kazuya is either going to go down a lot, like get really, really bad because people are going to figure him out completely. I highly doubt that's going to happen. It's probably going to be he just goes down a little bit, but there's going to be some matchups that Kazuya just gets obliterated by, and I wouldn't be surprised if people started secondarying those characters because they are so fed up with Kazuya. Terry's not as common, so that probably won't happen, but as of right now, I still think that Kazuya is the better character. He just hits too hard. He's really, really easy. That up B out of shield is ridiculous. And though Terry has a good up B out of shield, hits really hard, he is still ridiculous. I just think Kazuya gets a little bit more each hit than Terry does right now. So, there you have it, the official ranking of the FGC characters from a guy who doesn't play FGC characters. I hope you enjoyed. Sport's been absolutely unreal lately. Let me know what you guys think. If there was something key that I left out, please let me know down below. Let me know what characters you guys want compared, all that kind of good stuff. Sport has been absolutely unreal. Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.